The much anticipated open weight reasoning models from OpenAI are now here. In this video, I'm going to go over the blog post. I'm going to show you how it stacks up to some of the competition that is out there. I'm also going to walk you through how you can get started locally, as well as some options for plugging this into your application from a cloud provider. First things first, there are two new models, GPT-OSS 120B as well as GPT-OSS 20B. These models come under an Apache 2 license, and both are reasoning models. Both are mixture of experts models. The larger model you'll be able to run on a single 80GB GPU, something like an NVIDIA 100. And for the smaller 20B model, you can actually run it on something as lightweight as a laptop, assuming you have at least 16 gigabytes of memory. If you're looking for a private solution or something you can run offline, this release is going to be really appealing. One of the reasons why these models are particularly interesting is that they are the first open-weight models from OpenAI since GPT-2 was released back in 2019. That means it's been over 5 years since the last time OpenAI provided something that developers can directly run and customize. Now, in terms of activated parameters at inference time, GPT-OSS 120 billion activates 5.1 billion parameters per token, while the 20 billion model activates about 3.6 billion parameters per token. Both models support a context length of up to 128,000 tokens, which is extremely high compared to many other open source options available right now. For training, the models were trained mostly on English, with a focus on STEM, coding, and general knowledge. OpenAI is also releasing the tokenizer, which was the same tokenizer used for GPT-4 Mini and GPT-4, called O200K Harmony. That tokenizer is also open-sourced as part of this release. One of the more exciting aspects comes from the post-training process. During post-training, OpenAI applied chain-of-thought reasoning and tool use before producing answers. If you've ever seen models that expose their thinking traces, this is very similar, except here, the model can also invoke external tools in the middle of that reasoning process. That means it can do something like run a web search or execute code before actually responding to your query. For example, if you ask a question that requires up-to-date information, the model can attempt a search query first. If that query doesn't give what it needs, it can refine the search and try again. This reflective capability makes the models especially useful for agentic applications where you want tool use to be embedded directly into the reasoning process. Now let's touch on benchmarks. According to OpenAI's blog post, the larger GPT-OSS model outperforms GPT-4 Mini without tools across the board, and is even competitive with GPT-4-0.3 in several categories. For humanity's last exam, performance doesn't beat every closed-weight model, but it's still very strong compared to other open models. On competition math benchmarks, the models are extremely close to GPT-4 Mini and actually outperform GPT-4 0.3. On GPQA Diamond, we see 80.1% accuracy for the 120B model and 71.5% for the 20B model. On MMLU, the 120B model hits 90%, while the 20B model scores 85.3. These are highly competitive numbers. Let me give you a quick example scenario. If you ask, OpenAI's latest open-weight model details have leaked online. How many experts are in each layer? The model doesn't just spit out an answer. Instead, it interprets the request, initiates a search query, reviews the results, and if the first search isn't sufficient, it tries again. That ability to iterate before responding is a big leap for open-weight models. If you're building any sort of agent-style application, this is worth paying attention to. Having tool use built directly into the reasoning process makes these models powerful in practice, even if they aren't the absolute largest in scale. Now, why is this release such a big deal? Let's look at the independent benchmarks from artificial analysis. Not only do these models perform competitively, but because they're open source, there's already intense competition among cloud providers to host them at very low prices. For the 120B model, pricing is already as low as 10 cents per million input tokens and 50 cents per million output tokens on some providers. On Grok, it's 15 cents per million input and 75 cents per million output. For the smaller 20B model, pricing drops even further, down to 5 cents per million input and 20 cents per million output on platforms like Fireworks. That's extremely affordable compared to many closed-weight APIs. Visually, when you compare the models on benchmarks like MMLU Pro, GPQA Diamond, Humanity's Last Exam, and Live Code Bench, GPT-OSS is smaller in scale than many of the flagship models from Anthropic or Google. We don't know exact sizes for things like Claude 2 or Gemini 2.5, but they're likely in the hundreds of billions of parameters. Even so, GPT-OSS holds its own, scoring in very respectable ranges across all the major benchmarks. That said, it's important to set expectations. These open-weight models aren't designed to be frontier models that can build entire web apps from a single prompt, but depending on the task, they can perform extremely well and are now among the most capable open models available anywhere. So how do you get started? The easiest way is through Hugging Face, where you can pull the models directly. Another excellent option is Ollama, which makes it simple to run models locally. Once installed, you just run Ollama run GPT-OSS, and by default, it will use the 20B model. If you've got powerful hardware, like an A100 GPU or Apple's M3 Max with plenty of RAM, you can also try out the 120B version. Finally, if you don't want to run the models locally, you can explore providers through OpenRouter. This gives you a unified view of available hosting, prices, throughput, and billing across multiple providers. It's a convenient way to experiment with the models in the cloud without locking yourself into a single service. So, to wrap things up, this release from OpenAI is significant. After more than 5 years without open-weight models, we now have 2 strong reasoning models, ones that bring tool use into the reasoning process, that score competitively on benchmarks, and that are already accessible at very low hosting costs. Whether you're experimenting locally or integrating into an application, these models open up a lot of new possibilities. The big takeaway here is that OpenAI has officially released 2 new open-weight reasoning models under Apache 2. GPT-OSS 1.20b and GPT-OSS 2.0b. Both are mixture of experts models with massive context windows up to 128,000 tokens, and they're trained with chain-of-thought reasoning and tool use in mind. On benchmarks, they hold their own against some of the strongest open models available today, and because they're open source, we're already seeing affordable hosting options across different providers. If you want to try them yourself, you can pull them directly from Hugging Face or run them locally with something like Ollama. That's it for this breakdown of OpenAI's newest models. If you found this useful, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next update. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.